Family Guy has been on the air for more than 20 years. In that long stretch of time, the show has built up a quiet pile of small mistakes, soft slips, and broken rules that most viewers never stop to notice. Peter has worked at a long line of jobs that do not line up. Stewie has stayed 1 year old while the years have moved past him. Brian has died and come back. The town of Quahog has shifted street by street. Tonight, this video walks through 10 of the largest of these, slowly and gently, in a soft voice that is made for resting. There is nothing here that needs your full attention. You can listen with your eyes closed. You can let the words drift past you. You can fall asleep at any point, and the video will keep going. Welcome to Red Umbrella. If you enjoy long, calm breakdowns like this one, the subscribe button is a small thing that helps the channel a lot. The pilot episode and the mistakes that started it all. Every long-running show has a beginning. A first episode, a first scene, a first joke. The very first time an audience meets the people they will spend years watching. For most shows, the pilot is a careful thing. It is written, rewritten, and tested. The voices are picked with care. The look of the characters is decided. The world they live in is mapped out. The pilot is supposed to be the foundation. Everything that comes later is built on top of it. Family Guy had a pilot too. It aired on January 31st, 1999. The episode was called Death Has a Shadow. It was placed in one of the best spots a new show could ever ask for. It came on right after the Super Bowl. Tens of millions of people had their televisions on. Many of them stayed on the channel after the game ended. They saw a new cartoon about a family in a town called Quahog. They met a father named Peter, a mother named Lois, a teenage girl named Meg, a teenage boy named Chris, a baby named Stewie, and a dog named Brian who could talk. The man behind the show was Seth MacFarlane. He was 25 years old when the pilot aired. That made him one of the youngest people in television history to create his own animated series. Before Family Guy, he had made two short cartoons in college and just after. One was called The Life of Larry. The other was called Larry and Steve. These short films had a father, a son, and a talking dog. The bones of Family Guy were already there. Fox saw the shorts and asked him to turn the idea into a full show. The pilot was watched by around 22 million people on its first night. That was a huge number. By most measures, the show should have been a hit from day one. But the people who watched the pilot did not all stay with the show. Many of them tuned out for the second episode. The numbers dropped fast. Fox started to worry. The reviews were not all kind either. Some critics liked the jokes. Others said the show was too rude for their taste. A few said it copied The Simpsons too closely. The pilot was both a beginning and a warning sign at the same time. What is less talked about is that the pilot is also where some of the very first mistakes in Family Guy began. These mistakes are small. Most viewers never notice them. They live inside the episode itself, hidden in plain sight, and they are interesting because they show that the show was already breaking its own rules from the very first day. To understand the first set of mistakes, it helps to know how the pilot was made. Seth MacFarlane drew the early version of the show by himself. He made a short demo film for Fox. The demo was about 7 minutes long. He used his own savings to make it. The demo had simple animation, simple voices, and a simple story. Fox liked the demo enough to order a full pilot. The pilot was then made with a real animation team and a real cast. When you watch the pilot today, the first thing many fans notice is that the characters look a little different. Peter is drawn with a slightly different face. His chin is shaped differently. His eyes are a touch farther apart. Lois has a thinner body and a different hair shape. Stewie has a head that is more pointed at the top. Brian is more of a pure white color with no soft shading. Chris looks younger and rounder. Meg has a different chin and a different mouth shape. The colors of their clothes are also a little off from what they would become later. This part is not really a mistake. Cartoon characters often shift in look between the pilot and the rest of the show. The Simpsons did the same thing. So did King of the Hill. So did most cartoons people now think of as classic. The drawings get cleaner. The faces get easier to draw quickly. The colors get fixed. Fans accept this kind of change, but there are deeper changes that go beyond the look. The pilot has Stewie speaking with a voice that is close to his later voice, but not the same. Seth MacFarlane voiced him from the start. In the pilot, his voice is a little softer and a little less sharp. The accent that fans now know so well is there, but it is not as strong. Stewie also acts in a way that is closer to a real evil baby. He talks about wanting to take over the world. He talks about hating Lois in a serious way. He builds weapons. He plans to kill her. The pilot treats this as a real threat. Later in the show, Stewie becomes more of a comedy character. He still says these things sometimes, but the show stops treating them as serious. The change is slow, and it does not all happen at once, but it begins right after the pilot. This is one of the first big inside jokes that fans began to spot when looking back at the show. In the pilot, Stewie is dangerous. In later seasons, seasons, Stewie is a child who acts more like a confused little boy. By the middle of the show, Stewie is shown going to preschool. He has friends. He has a teddy bear named Rupert. He talks like a normal child for whole scenes at a time. The early version of him barely fits with this later version. The show never explains why he changed. It simply changed him. That is one of the very first cracks in the world the pilot tried to set up. There is more. The pilot introduces a number of small details that the show would later forget or move on from. In Death Has a Shadow, Peter loses his job at a toy factory because he falls asleep at work. The toys go out into the world with safety problems. Children get hurt. Peter is fired. He then goes on welfare so his family can keep eating. He gets a check by mistake that is far larger than it should be. He spends the money. The story ends with him in court and Lois saving him with a speech about family. This is a clean and complete pilot story. But the toy factory itself becomes one of the first floating facts of the show. Peter is shown working there in the early episodes of season 1. Then later in season 1, he leaves the toy factory. He works other places. He comes back to the toy factory for some episodes. He leaves again. The factory itself, called the Happy-Go-Lucky Toy Factory, comes and goes. Sometimes it is a big company. Sometimes it is a small place. Sometimes Peter is in charge. Sometimes he is one of many workers. The pilot did not set down hard rules for what this place was. The show kept changing it. The pilot also has a few small dialogue mistakes. Lois says a line about Peter that does not really match how she will be written for the rest of the show. Meg says a line about herself that the show will later forget. Brian, in the pilot, drinks beer with Peter and acts more like a calm, older friend than a true family member. Later seasons would soften this and make Brian more of a part of the family. The pilot version of Brian is colder and more distant. There is also a mistake that is hidden in the very setup of the family. In the pilot, Peter is shown to be the kind of father who tries to do the right thing, but fails because he is not very smart. He is not yet the loud, wild, often cruel father he will become in later seasons. The pilot Peter is closer to a normal sitcom dad with a softer edge. Lois is the one with most of the strong personality. By the end of season 1, Peter has already started to grow louder. By season 4, after the show came back from being cancelled, he is almost a different person. The kind man from the pilot is gone. The pilot set up one Peter. The show kept a different one. There is one more mistake from this very early time that is worth stopping to mention. In the pilot, when Peter spends the welfare money, he buys his family a hot tub, a giant television, a fancy car, and other things. The car is shown driving up to the house. In some scenes, the house has a one-car driveway. In other scenes from the same episode, the driveway looks larger and rounder. The size of the lawn changes. The placement of the front door looks slightly different from one shot to the next. These are very small drawing mistakes. They are not the kind of thing that would matter in any single shot, but they are the start of a pattern. The Griffin house would change shape, change layout, and change room placement many, many times over the years to come. It begins right here in the very first episode. If something is uncertain in the pilot, it should be flagged. The exact number of pilot viewers has been reported in slightly different ways across different sources. Most reliable sources put the number around 22 million. Some sources push it a bit higher. The truth is that the pilot was watched by tens of millions, but the exact figure is not perfectly fixed in one place. The same is true for the budget of the pilot, which has been reported in a few different ways. What is certain is that the show used a higher budget than most cartoons of that time. Looking at the pilot now, after more than 20 years of Family Guy, it feels like a different show. The voices are softer. The look is a little off. The jokes move at a slower pace. There are fewer cutaways. The whole feel is closer to a normal sitcom than the wild cartoon Family Guy would become. But many of the seeds of the show are already there. The cutaway joke shows up. The talking dog shows up. The evil baby shows up. The middle-class town shows up. The wife, who is too good for her husband, shows up. The kids, who do not know what to do with their parents, show up. The bones are right. The skin had not yet grown over them. The pilot also gives us our very first lesson about the show as a whole. Family Guy was never a show that worried much about keeping its facts straight. The mistakes that came later did not arrive out of nowhere. They were already starting in the very first episode. A character who would change. A house that would change. A job that would come and go. A tone that would shift. A father who would slowly turn into someone else. The pilot held all of these in soft focus. The seasons that followed brought them out one by one. When the show grew bigger, the small mistakes from the pilot grew bigger with it. What was once a small slip became a habit. What was once a soft choice became a pattern. The pilot was the beginning of more than a show. It was the beginning of a long list of cracks that fans would later spend years finding. And at the very top of that list, sitting right at the heart of the family, was one character whose simple, basic facts would become almost impossible to pin down across across the years. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The pilot of Family Guy planted small seeds that would grow into the long list of slips the show is known for today. The shifting look of the family, the soft tone of an early Peter, the toy factory that would come and go, the crib that would never let Stewie grow. All of it started in that very first episode after the Super Bowl in 1999. The seeds did not stay small for long. One of them grew faster and louder than any other, and it grew around the oldest child in the Griffin family, whose age the show has been quietly moving up and down for more than 20 years. Section 2. Meg Griffin and the age that keeps changing. Of all the people who live inside the Griffin house, Meg is the one the show has treated the worst. That is not a small claim. That is something the writers have said in interviews. They have admitted, more than once, that Meg is the family member they pick on the most. She gets shouted at. She gets ignored. She is told she is ugly. She is told she is unloved. Other characters laugh at her. Even her own mother has spoken to her in cruel ways across many episodes. The show seems to enjoy putting her at the bottom of every joke. But this section is not about how Meg is treated. It is about something simpler. It is about her age. A basic fact. The kind of fact that any show should be able to keep straight. How old is Meg Griffin? The answer should be easy. In the very first season, Meg is shown as a teenager. The show puts her at 16 years old. She is in high school. She has a learner's permit. She is just starting to drive. She is the oldest of the 3 children. She is older than Chris. She is much older than Stewie. The basic shape of her age is set up in season 1. A normal show would now do one of two things. It would either keep Meg at 16 forever, the way many cartoons keep their kids the same age, or it would let her grow up year by year, the way live-action shows often do when their child actors grow. Either choice would be fine. Both would make sense. Both would let the show stay clean. Family Guy did neither. Or, in a way, it did both at the same time, and switched between them whenever it felt like it. In season 2, Meg is still in high school. Her age is treated as roughly the same. In season 3, she is still in high school. So far, so good. Then the show was canceled in 2002. When it came back in 2005, Meg was still in high school. That is a gap of 3 years in real life, but inside the show, she had not aged at all. This is normal for a cartoon. The Simpsons does this all the time. Bart Simpson has been 10 years old for over 30 years. There is nothing wrong with freezing a character. But Family Guy did not freeze her. It started moving her around. In some episodes after the return, Meg is said to be 16. In others, she is 17. In one episode, she is said to be 18. In another, she is back to being 17. In another, she is 16 again. The show was not picking one age and keeping it. The show was picking whatever age helped the joke in that episode and moving on. A clear example comes from a season 7 episode called Steroids, which aired in 2009. In that episode, Meg is at a school dance. She is treated as a high school junior or senior. She has a brief moment of feeling older and more confident. Around the same time, in other episodes from that same period, she is treated more like a young, lost girl in her early teens. The age signals do not match across the season. A bigger example comes from a season 8 episode called Quagmire's Dad, which aired in 2010. In that episode, Meg has a conversation about her age that suggests she is 17, but there is a much more famous moment in a different episode where Meg is treated as if she is much younger, almost like a middle schooler. The show talks about her age out loud and then forgets the answer in the next episode. Then comes one of the strangest moments in the whole history of Meg Griffin. In a season 8 episode called Dial Meg for Murder, Meg is shown going to prison. She is sent to an adult prison after her boyfriend, who has just been let out of jail, draws her into a crime. In that prison, she is treated as an adult. She is housed with adult women. She fights other adult women. She comes out of the prison harder, tougher, and changed. For a short time, the show treats her as if she has crossed into adulthood. Then, in the next few episodes, she is back to being a high school student. The prison time is barely mentioned again. This is the heart of the Meg Griffin age problem. The show keeps moving her up and down the age line. One day she is a child, the next day she is old enough to go to prison with adult women. The day after that, she is a child again. The show does not stop and explain. It does not flash back and tell us how time passed. It simply changes her age to fit what the writers need that week. There is more. Meg has had a number of birthdays inside the show. A birthday should add a year. That is the simplest math any child knows. If you are 16 and you have a birthday, you are now 17. The next time someone asks you, you should say 17. But Meg has had birthdays and her age has not always moved up in a clean line afterward. In one episode, she has a birthday and turns 17. Episodes later, she is again called child 16. Then later, she is 18. Then back to 17. Some fans have tried to make sense of this. They have built timelines, they have made charts, they have lined up every episode where Meg's age is mentioned and tried to find an answer. The result is that no clean answer is possible. The show is not consistent. The writers are not trying to keep her age straight. They are using her age as a tool. When the joke needs her to be young, she is young. When the joke needs her to be older, she is older. When the joke needs her to be old enough to date a much older man, she is old enough. When the joke needs her to be a sad teenage girl crying in her room, she is a sad teenage girl. This kind of moving age is not just about Meg. It speaks to a bigger choice the show has made. Family Guy does not really care about its own facts. It cares about the joke in front of it. If the age helps the joke, it stays. If it does not help, it changes. The same writers can make her 16 in one episode and 18 in the next, and the show does not blink. There is a real-life reason for some of this. Meg's voice has been done by a few different actors. The very first season had a different voice actor, who left after a short time. Then, a young actor named Lacey Chabert came in for parts of season 1. Then, Mila Kunis took over from season 2 onward, and has stayed in the role for the rest of the show. As the voice changed, the age of the character drifted. Different writers wrote her differently. Different teams handled her in different ways. The lack of one steady plan for her age started early and never got fixed. There is also a deeper problem. Meg is often used as the punchline. She is the family member the show throws under the bus. When a joke is needed about a girl who is unwanted, Meg is there. When a joke is needed about a girl who is desperate, Meg is there. When a joke is needed about a girl who is too young or too old or too anything, Meg is there. The show pulls her age around to fit the punchline. That is part of why she has been everything from a young middle schooler in some scenes to a young adult in others. The Griffins have a family chart, in a sense. Stewie is the youngest, said to be 1 year old. Chris is in middle school in early seasons and high school in later ones. Meg is the oldest. Peter and Lois are the parents. Brian is the dog. The chart should be simple, but Meg breaks it more than any other child in the family. Stewie's age never moves at all. Chris stays roughly in his teens. Meg, on the other hand, slides up and down the chart over and over again. There is one episode where the show seems to almost wave at this problem. In a later season, Meg has a moment where she talks about how no one notices her. She says it with a flat, tired voice. The show plays it for a small laugh, but under the laugh, there is something that feels honest. The character knows she has been pushed around. She knows the family forgets her. She knows her own life inside the show is not steady. Whether the writers meant this as a quiet sign of her shifting story is not clear. What is clear is that, by that point in the show, Meg has lived through more changes than any other Griffin child. There is also a question of school. Meg has been a high school student for almost the entire show. She has been in 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade at different points. There have been moments where the show has hinted that she is about to graduate. There have been moments where she is clearly close to leaving school, but she never really moves on. She stays in high school the way most cartoon kids stay in their grade. That part is normal. What is not normal is how the show speaks about her age while she stays in that one school. The school stays steady. Her years inside the school do not. Some fans argue that the show has, at times, treated Meg as if she is meant to be 18. They point to scenes where she behaves more like a young woman. They point to scenes where adult characters speak to her in a way they would not speak to a younger teen. Other fans point out that the show has, at other times, made her clearly younger, with a younger voice and a younger set of worries. Both groups are right. Both sets of scenes exist. The show has made her both. Some details about Meg's age have come from outside the episodes themselves. Crew members have said in interviews and at conventions that they think of her as around 16 or 17 for most of the show. But a public statement from a writer is not the same as a clear answer inside the show. Inside the show, the answer is whatever the writers wrote that week. This kind of mistake is small in any one moment. No single episode is hurt by it. A viewer who watches one episode at a time will probably not catch the change. The mistake only grows when you watch many episodes back to back. Then the years stop matching. The grades stop matching. The parties she goes to do not match the school she is in. The boys she dates do not match her age. The friends she has do not match her year in school. If you sit down and try to put Meg's life in order, you cannot do it. There is no one timeline. There is no one answer. There is only a long list of moments where the show told you she was one age, and then a long list of other moments where the show told you she was another. None of them are wrong on their own. All of them are wrong together. This is one of the clearest examples of how Family Guy works. It does not try to fit. It does not try to match. It uses each character as a tool for that week's story. Meg, more than anyone, has paid the cost of that choice. The show has never given her a clear age, a clear school year, or a clear path through her own life. She is whatever the show needs her to be in the moment. And while her age may have been the thing the show changed most often, it is not the only part of her that the writers replaced. Long before her age started shifting, something else about Meg had already been quietly switched out, and most of the people who watch the show today have no idea that it ever happened. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Meg Griffin has been 16, 17, 18, and back again across the years, with no clean line that holds her age in one place. The show has used her age as a tool, bending it to fit whatever joke the writers needed in the moment. And her grade in school, her boyfriends, and even her trip to an adult prison have all been shaped by that loose hand. But the shifting of her age was not the first change the show made to her. Long before the years began to slide, the very voice that gave her life was quietly switched out, and the way it happened is one of the most overlooked pieces of the show's early days. Section 3. The voice of Meg that was replaced. In any cartoon, the voice of a character is half of who they are. The drawing tells you what the character looks like. The voice tells you who they are inside. A soft voice can make a strong-looking character feel kind. A sharp voice can make a soft-looking character feel harsh. The voice is the door into the heart of the character. When that voice changes, even a little, the character changes too. Most fans of Family Guy can tell you that Mila Kunis is the voice of Meg Griffin. They know this because Mila Kunis has been in the role for more than 2 decades. She has voiced Meg from season 2 all the way through to the most recent episodes. Over time, her voice has become locked together with the character. When fans hear Meg, they hear Mila Kunis. The two are tied together in their minds. But this is not the full story. Mila Kunis was not the first voice of Meg Griffin. She was not even the second. There were 2 voices before her, and the way the role moved from one actor to another is one of the quietest, least talked about pieces of Family Guy history. To understand this, it helps to go back to the very early days of the show. In 1998, before the pilot aired, the production team had to put together a cast. Seth MacFarlane voiced Peter, Stewie, Brian, Quagmire, and a number of other characters. Alex Borstein, who was already working in television, was cast as Lois. Seth Green came in for Chris. Then there was the question of Meg. The first actor cast as Meg Griffin was a woman named Rachel MacFarlane. She is Seth MacFarlane's sister. She has voiced many other cartoon characters across her career, including parts in American Dad and other shows. She voiced Meg in the original demo film, the 7-minute short that Seth MacFarlane made on his own to show Fox what the show could be. In that short, Rachel MacFarlane gave Meg a young, soft voice. The voice fit with the early style of the show, but when the time came to make the real pilot for Fox, the role of Meg was given to a different actor. Her name was Lacey Chabert. She was a young actor at the time, well known for her work in a television show called Party of 5. She was around 16 years old when she took on the role. She was close in age to the character she was voicing, which is rare in animation. Her voice was light and a little high. It carried the worry and softness of a real teenage girl. Lacey Chabert voiced Meg through the first season of Family Guy. She is in the pilot. She is in many of the 7 episodes that aired in that first short season. Her voice gives Meg a feel that the show would never quite have again. It is a softer Meg, a more nervous Meg. A Meg who sounds, in many lines, like a real high school girl rather than a cartoon character. But by the time the show was getting ready for season 2, Lacey Chabert was no longer in the role. The reasons for the change have been talked about in interviews over the years. The most often given reason is that her schedule on Party of 5 was too heavy. She could not keep up with the work on Family Guy and her live-action show at the same time. There has also been talk that her family wanted her to focus on her live-action career while she was still young. Different sources tell the story in slightly different ways. What is certain is that after season 1, she was gone from Family Guy. She did not record any new lines for the show after that. The role then passed to Mila Kunis. She was around 15 years old when she got the job. She had been on a sitcom called That 70s Show. She was young, but she was already known to television audiences. She came in for season 2 and stayed in the role from that point on. Here is where the mistake begins. The voice of Meg Griffin changed between season 1 and season 2. The change was real, it was clear. Anyone who watches season 1 and then watches season 2 back to back will hear it. Lacey Chabert's voice is softer and a little higher. Mila Kunis's voice is fuller and has a slightly deeper touch. The two are not the same. They were never the same. The mistake is not that the voice changed. Voices change in cartoons all the time. Actors leave, new actors come in. That is part of how television works. The mistake is that the show never said anything about it. There was no scene where Meg sounded different on purpose. There was no episode that made a joke about her voice. There was no moment where the writers winked at the change. Meg in season 1 sounded one way. Meg in season 2 sounded another way. And the show treated them as the same character without any flag at all. This is a strange thing for a cartoon to do, especially a cartoon that loves to make jokes about itself. Family Guy is a show that makes fun of its own setting all the time. It makes fun of its own jokes. It makes fun of its own past. But when it came to Meg's voice, the show went silent. The change happened, and then it was as if it had never happened. For most fans who started watching Family Guy after season 4, when the show came back from being canceled, this is news. They have never heard the Lacey Chabert version of Meg. They watched Family Guy on Adult Swim, where reruns played late at night. They watched it on DVD, where they could buy the seasons. They watched it on streaming, years later, when entire runs were available with one click. Many of them never went back to season 1. They went straight to the loud, fast version of the show that started with season 4. The Mila Kunis voice is the only Meg they have ever known. If you go and listen, you can find clear examples of the change. In the pilot, Death Has a Shadow, Meg has a small set of lines. Listen to the way her voice sits inside the scene. There is a softness to it. Now jump to a season 2 episode, such as Holy Crap, where Meg has more lines and is in more scenes. The voice is fuller, the pitch is a little lower, the energy is a little stronger. They are not the same person. They are two different actors playing one role. There is another smaller piece of this puzzle that often gets missed. In some sources, it is said that Lacey Chabert recorded a small handful of lines for episodes that were partly held over into season 2. The exact number of these lines and the exact episodes have been talked about in different ways. To stay honest, that part should be flagged. The simple, clean truth is that Lacey Chabert was the main voice of Meg in season 1, and Mila Kunis was the main voice of Meg from season 2 onward. Beyond that, the small details about which lines were recorded by which actor in the very early time are not perfectly settled in public sources. Now, why does this count as a mistake at all? After all, voice changes are normal. The reason this counts is that the show has never built any small piece of writing around the change. Other cartoons handle it. The Simpsons has, at times, found gentle ways to touch on voice changes when actors have left. King of the Hill spoke openly about it when one of its actors passed away. Family Guy did not do this. The change happened in silence. The show acted as if Meg had always sounded the way she now sounds. That choice is part of a much bigger pattern in Family Guy. The show often moves on as if the past did not exist. There is also the question of how the show handles Lacey Chabert herself. Even when she is mentioned in interviews about the show, it is usually in passing. She is rarely talked about as a key part of how Meg was first set up. The truth is that her short time on the show shaped the character. The way she gave Meg a quiet, worried voice helped lock Meg into her place as the family member who is always nervous, always unsure, always one step behind. Mila Kunis carried that bass forward, but the bass itself was made by the actor before her. There is one more layer here. The voice change for Meg was not the only voice change in the early days of Family Guy. Other small parts had different actors in different episodes. A few side characters were spoken by different people across the early seasons. The show was still finding its feet. Casting had not yet settled. But Meg's change is the biggest one because Meg is part of the main family. She is one of the 5 Griffins. She is in the title shot. She is in the opening song. A change at her level is not a small thing. Long after the change, Lacey Chabert herself has spoken kindly about her time on the show. She has talked in interviews about being a young actor and being given the chance to be part of something so early in its life. She has not spoken in a bitter way about leaving. She has moved on to many other roles, including a famous part in a film called Mean Girls and a long career in television movies. Her time as Meg is now a small line on her resume. But for the show, it is the doorway through which the character first walked. The voice change is one of those mistakes that grows louder with time. In 1999, no one really noticed. The show was new, the cast was new, the fans were new. By 2010, the show had been running for years. The voice of Mila Kunis as Meg had become the standard. By 2020, almost everyone watching the show had no idea Lacey Chabert had ever been part of it. The first voice was almost erased. It only lives in the 7 episodes of season 1 and in old tapes that fans share online. For a show that has built so much of its life on jokes about its own history, it is strange that this part of the past has stayed so quiet. The voice that started Meg Griffin is not part of the Family Guy story most fans know. The show simply moved on, the way it moves on from many of its own slips, and trusted that no one would care enough to notice. Most fans never did, but the change still sits there, in those very first episodes, waiting to be heard by anyone man who goes back far enough. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The voice of Meg Griffin in Season 1 was not the same voice that fans know today, and the change from Lacey Chabert to Mila Kunis happened with no word from the show at all. The softer, lighter Meg of the pilot was quietly replaced, and the version most fans grew up with was built on top of a base that almost no one remembers. Voices were not the only thing that the show let drift in those early seasons. The man at the heart of the family was about to begin his own long string of changes, with one job after another piling up on his record until even the show itself could not seem to keep track. Section 4. Peter Griffin and his forgotten jobs. A father in any sitcom usually has a job. The job is often part of who the character is. The father in The Simpsons works at a power plant. The father in King of the Hill sells propane. The father in The Flintstones works at a quarry. The father in Bob's Burgers runs a small restaurant. These jobs do not move around. They stay the same year after year. They become part of the world the show lives in. The viewer learns the job, learns the people at the job, learns the boss at the job, and the job becomes a small home inside the show. Peter Griffin has had many jobs. Far too many. The number is not small. Across the run of Family Guy, Peter has worked at a long list of places, in a long list of roles, with a long list of bosses. Some of these jobs have lasted for many seasons. Some have lasted for one episode. Some have come and gone and come back again. The show has never settled on one steady job for him. And in the way it has handled this, Family Guy has built up one of its largest and longest running mistakes. To trace this story, it helps to start at the beginning. In the pilot episode, Death Has a Shadow, Peter works at a place called the Happy-Go-Lucky Toy Factory. He is shown checking toys as they pass by on a moving belt. His job is to make sure the toys are safe for children. He falls asleep at his desk, and a flood of broken and unsafe toys goes out into the world. Children get hurt. Peter is fired. This is the first job we ever see him in. In the early seasons, the toy factory shows up again and again. Peter is sometimes back at the factory. Sometimes he is in charge. Sometimes he is one of many workers. The boss of the factory is a man named Mr. Weed. He is a kind, soft man with a gentle voice. He is one of Peter's first bosses on the show. The toy factory feels, in those early seasons, like Peter's home for work. It is the place he goes. It is the place we know him from. Then in a season 3 episode called Death Lives, the factory part of Peter's life starts to shift. The bigger turn comes in a later season 3 episode called Mr. Griffin Goes to Washington, where the toy factory is bought by a tobacco company. Peter is asked to help sell cigarettes to children, which he refuses to do. The story plays out in one episode and then moves on. The factory itself fades into the background. Then comes a moment that should change everything. In a season 4 episode called Peter's Got Woods, Mr. Weed dies. He chokes on a piece of food at the Griffin family dinner table. He falls forward. He does not get up. The show treats this as a real death. He is buried. The toy factory is, from that point on, without its boss. The job that had been one of the steady parts of Peter's life is now changed for good. After this, Peter floats. He works at a fishing boat company called the SS Moore. He sails out into the water. He has small adventures at sea. The fishing job lasts for a short stretch of episodes and then is dropped. The boat is barely seen again. Peter then takes a job at a brewery called the Pawtucket Brewery. The brewery is a real and steady place inside the show. He works there for many seasons. The brewery has its own set of side characters. There is a worker named Opie. There is a boss named Angela. There is a man known as the Pawtucket Patriot, who is the face of the company in advertisements. Peter is shown working on the production line. He is shown drinking the beer. He is shown going to meetings. The brewery becomes, for a long time, his main work home. But even with the brewery being a steady place, the show keeps adding new jobs around it. In some episodes, Peter is at the brewery. In others, he is somewhere else, with no clear word on whether he has left the brewery or is still there. The show often does not say. He may be working at the brewery this week and at a brand new job the next week, with no story between the two to tell us how he moved. The list of other jobs is long. Peter has worked as a fisherman. He has worked as a security guard at the airport. He has worked as a lifeguard. He has worked as a chimney sweep. He has worked as the captain of his own pirate ship. He has worked as a sportscaster on a local news show. He has worked as a school bus driver. He has worked as a roadie for a band. He has worked at a candy factory. He has worked as a cab driver. He has worked as a police officer. He has worked as a model. He has worked as a shoe salesman. He has worked as a butler. He has worked for one full episode as a doctor, even though he has no medical training. Some of these are one-episode jobs. Peter takes the job, the story plays out, and by the end of the episode, he is fired or the job is closed. The next week, he is somewhere else. These do not really count as jobs in the long sense. They are short, quick stories. But many of the jobs are bigger. The fishing boat is more than a one-episode story. The brewery is a long-running setting. The candy factory shows up across more than one episode. The role as a sportscaster is one he holds for a meaningful stretch of time. These bigger jobs raise the simple question, where does Peter actually work? The show has different answers in different episodes. In one season 7 episode, he is at the brewery and acts as if it is the only job he has ever had. In another episode from the same period, he speaks about the toy factory as if he just left it. In another episode, he refers to a job that the show had never mentioned before. The job pile grows. The show does not clean it up. There's also a strange piece in the way the brewery has been written. In one episode, Peter is fired from the brewery. In another, he is back. In another, he is fired again. In another, he is given a higher role. In another, he is at the bottom again. The cycle has played out more than once. Each cycle is treated, in the moment, as if it is the first time it has happened. The same is true of the toy factory. Even after Mr. Weed died on screen, there have been moments where the factory comes back. Peter has been shown working at a factory that looks like the same place. The boss is sometimes a new person, sometimes never named. The show acts, in some episodes, as if the factory is still part of his life, even though the man who ran it has been dead since season 4. Some fans have tried to keep a running list of Peter Griffin's jobs. The list is long.
It changes with every season. It is never closed. New jobs keep being added. Old jobs keep being mentioned in passing as if they are still part of his life even after he has clearly left them. The show treats his work history the way it treats most of its history. It treats it as a tool. The job is a setup for a story. Once the story is told, the job is left behind. This kind of mistake is small in any one episode. A viewer who watches one Family Guy episode at a time will probably not notice. Peter has a job that week, Peter does that job, the story moves on. But for a viewer who watches many episodes back to back, the jobs start to clash. The man at the brewery in one episode is the man at the candy factory in the next, and the man at the airport in the next. The jumps are not explained. The transitions are not shown. The job simply changes. There is also the question of money. Peter and his family live in a large house. They have 2 cars. They have many things in their home. Lois used to work as a piano teacher and comes from a rich family. But most of the time, the family is shown as a regular middle-class family that lives off Peter's pay. If Peter loses his job and gets a new one in the same week, with no story about money in between, the family does not seem to feel the change. The bills still get paid, the food is still on the table, the house stays the same, the job changes, but life inside the house does not. This is part of the same pattern. Family Guy does not stop to count its own facts. Peter loses a job. Peter gets a new job. The family keeps living. There are no real money problems. There is no long stretch of being broke. There is no story about the family struggling to pay rent for months. The job changes are big, but the changes that should follow them never arrive. There is one episode that almost speaks to this. In a later season, Peter has a moment where he tries to count up the things he has done in his life. The list is long. He says it in a fast, joking way. The show plays it for a laugh, but under the laugh, the moment is honest. Peter himself, inside the show, cannot quite keep track of what he has done. The show is, for a brief moment, aware that his work life makes no real sense. There is also the question of time. Family Guy began in 1999. Peter has now had jobs across more than 2 decades of real time. Some fans have tried to ask how many years are meant to have passed inside the world of the show. The answer is unclear. The show does not stick to a clean timeline. Stewie has stayed 1 year old for the whole run. Chris and Meg have stayed in school for years. So the years inside the show may not be matching the years in real life. But even with that, the number of jobs is too large for any normal worker. Peter has done more in the world of Family Guy than most real people would do in a lifetime. And the show keeps adding more. There is one more piece worth saying. The show has, at times, treated Peter's work life as part of who he is. He is meant to be a man who cannot hold a job. He is meant to be a man whose mind moves too fast and whose patience runs out too quickly. The shifting jobs may, in some way, fit with this. He cannot stay anywhere for long. He gets in trouble, he moves on. Seen this way, the long list is not a mistake at all. It is a feature. But that argument runs into a wall when you look at how the brewery is shown. The brewery is not a one-episode joke. It is shown as his real, steady job for years. The same is true of the toy factory in the early seasons. These are not quick jobs. These are settled places. The show has put real work into making them feel like part of his life. Then the show forgets them. It moves on. It does not close them out. The result is a man with no clear work life, and no clear money life, and no clear path through his own years. Peter Griffin is held together by the moment. Each episode, he is whatever the writers need him to be. He is a brewery worker, a fisherman, a salesman, a sportscaster, a police officer, a chef, a security guard, a sailor, a builder, a teacher. The list grows longer with every season. The show does not stop. The mistake is not that he has many jobs. The mistake is that the show has never told us in a clean way which one is real. And while Peter Griffin has been quietly losing track of where he works, the youngest member of his family has been sitting in his high chair year after year, never growing up, with the show using his never-aging body to hide one of the strangest small slips in its whole history. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Peter Griffin has worked at the toy factory, the fishing boat, the brewery, the candy factory, the airport, the news desk, and many more places that the show has put down and picked up at will. The brewery has held him for the longest stretch, but even that has been broken, fixed, and broken again across the seasons, with no clean line for what he does or how he is paid. While Peter has been losing track of his own jobs, the youngest Griffin has held perfectly still, sitting in his high chair year after year as the world around him has aged. His age has stayed the same for the entire run of the show, and the way the writers have used that frozen number has built one of the strangest small mistakes the show carries. Section 5. Stewie and the year that never moved Stewie Griffin is a baby. That is the simplest way to say who he is. He is the youngest child in the Griffin family. He is small. He has a large, oval-shaped head. He wears a yellow shirt and red pants. He carries around a bear named Rupert. He sleeps in a crib. He eats baby food. He is, by every visual sign, an infant. But Stewie is not a normal baby. He talks like a grown man. He uses long words. He builds machines. He has built rocket ships, time machines, freeze rays, and weapons that can do real harm. He plans plots that would not be out of place in a spy film. He speaks with a sharp accent that sounds British, even though no one else in the family speaks that way. He is voiced by Seth MacFarlane, who created the show. Stewie is one of the most beloved characters in the show. He is also, in a quiet way, the holder of one of the show's longest-running facts that does not move. Stewie is 1 year old. That is what the show says. He is one. He has been one since the pilot in 1999. He was one when the show was canceled in 2002. He was one when the show came back in 2005. He was one in season 10. He was one in season 15. He was one in season 20. He has been one for the entire run of the show. He has had birthdays inside the show, and he has remained one. He has been alive for more than 2 decades of real time, and he is still, in the world of Family Guy, a child who has just turned 1. This in itself is not a mistake. Many cartoons freeze the ages of their characters. Bart Simpson has been 10 for over 30 years. Lisa Simpson has been 8 for the same length of time. King of the Hill kept Bobby Hill at 12 for most of its run. Frozen ages are normal in cartoons. They allow a show to keep its world steady. They allow children to keep being children. They allow the family to keep its same shape across many years. What sets Stewie apart is that the show has, at times, given him a birthday. A birthday should mean a year passes. It should mean the child is now older than they were. But Stewie has had birthdays in the show, and he has stayed 1. The math does not work. The most famous example comes from a season 4 episode called Chick Cancer. In that episode, Stewie is seen having his first birthday party. The party is built around the fact that he has just turned 1. There are guests. There is a cake. There is a celebration. He is, the show tells us in that episode, 1 year old. This would be fine if the show had then said, in earlier episodes, that he was younger than 1. But the show had been calling him 1 year old for years before Chick Cancer. He was 1 in the pilot in 1999. He was 1 through season 1. He was 1 through seasons 2 and 3. Then, in season 4, he turned 1 again. The number did not change. The show simply moved his first birthday around to where it needed to be. Some fans have tried to make sense of this. They have said that maybe his earlier age was different. Maybe he was meant to be very young in the early seasons and not yet 1. But this does not match what the show actually said. He was named as 1 year old in early dialogue. He was treated as a 1 year old. So when his first birthday party arrived in season 4, the math was already broken. Then it broke again. In a season 11 episode called Crisscross, the show celebrates Stewie's birthday again. He is shown getting older by 1 year, but by the next episode, he is back to being treated as a baby in a crib. The age the birthday should have given him does not stick. The show tells us he is now a different age, and then forgets. The same baby behavior comes back. The same crib comes back. The same 1 year old voice and look come back. Even more
more strange is that Stewie has had moments where the show has played with his age in larger ways. In a season 13 episode called The Boys in the Band, the show makes a joke about how Stewie should be older by now and is not. Other characters seem aware, for a brief beat, that something is strange. The moment passes. The show goes back to treating Stewie as the same baby he has always been. In some episodes,
Stewie is shown going to preschool. He has classmates. He has a teacher. He has friends. The classmates are clearly older than one. They look like 3 or 4-year-olds. They speak in full sentences. Stewie fits in among them in some ways and not in others. The school setting suggests an age that is older than what the show says he is. In other episodes, Stewie is back in his crib. He is back in the high chair. He is back to being treated as a small baby. The behavior shifts based on the story. If the story needs him to go to school, he goes. If the story needs him to be a baby in a crib, he is a baby in a crib. The show does not explain how he can be both. There is also the question of how Stewie speaks. He uses long words. He has a sharp tongue. He often understands more than the adults around him. He is not a baby in his mind. He is a baby only in his body. The show has used this gap many times for jokes. The early seasons even built whole stories around the idea that he wants to take over the world or harm Lois. As the show went on, this part of him softened, and he became more of a clever child than a tiny villain. But his body stayed the same. Why does this matter as a mistake? It matters because the show keeps calling out his age in ways that do not match. If Stewie were quietly frozen at 1 and the show never spoke about it, this would be a normal cartoon choice. But the show talks about his age. It throws birthdays at him. It makes other characters wonder out loud about his speed of growth. It plays with his age, then forgets the change, then plays with it again. The number 1 is, in a way, the safest answer the show could have picked. By keeping him at 1, the show keeps him as a baby in look. He still fits in the high chair. He still fits in the crib. He still has the round head and small body that fans expect. If they had aged him up to 2 or 3, the look would have to change. The crib would have to go. The high chair would have to go. Stewie would have to grow. That seems to be the real reason behind the choice. The show wants him to look like a baby because that is part of the joke. A baby with a sharp tongue is funnier than a small child with the same tongue. The visual matters. So the number is held in place. The body is held in place. And the years go by while Stewie sits in his high chair and never gets any taller. There is also a smaller piece worth saying. Stewie's birthday is sometimes given as a different month in different episodes. Some fans have tracked the dates. The show has not been steady. He may be born in one part of the year in one episode and another part of the year in another. This is harder to pin down because birthdays are often shown in the moment without a clear date being said out loud. To stay honest, the exact month should be flagged as something that has shifted across episodes rather than been said firmly in one place. There is one more layer. Stewie has, in some episodes, been shown growing up in flash-forward stories. There are episodes that show him as an adult with a future life, a future family, and a future job. There are episodes that show him as a teenager. These flash-forwards are not part of the main timeline. They are dreams or what-if stories. They do not count as real changes to his age, but they show that the show knows what an older Stewie would look like. It has drawn him. It has voiced him. It just has not let him grow up in real time. The mistake in the end is the same mistake that haunts so much of Family Guy. The show wants to have it all. It wants Stewie to be a baby for the look. It wants Stewie to be a small genius for the jokes. It wants to give him a birthday for the story. It does not want any of these things to take away from the others. So the show says he is 1. The show throws him a birthday. The show ignores the birthday the next week. The show puts him in school. The show puts him back in the crib. The show keeps him at his age and at every age at once. For most viewers, this is not a problem. The show's works. The jokes land. Stewie is funny. But for any viewer who looks closely at the timeline, there is no clean answer. Stewie is 1. Stewie has had his first birthday many times. Stewie has gone to school. Stewie sleeps in a crib. All of these are true. None of them fit together. And while Stewie has been quietly stuck at 1 year old for the whole run of the show, his closest companion in the family has been on a much shorter ride, taken away from the show one night in late 2013, mourned by fans, and brought back almost as fast as he had left. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Stewie has been 1 year old since 1999, and the show has thrown him birthday after birthday without ever letting him grow past that single number. His preschool, his crib, his high chair, and his sharp adult speech all sit in the same body, with no clean line drawn between them. The frozen age of Stewie sits at one end of the family, and at the other end is the friend who has been by his side through almost every story. That friend was taken away from the show one cold night in
late 2013, and what happened in the weeks that followed is one of the boldest and quickest reversals in Family Guy's whole history.
Section 6. The Death of Brian and the Quick Return. Of all the people who live inside the Griffin house, Brian is the one who is hardest to place. He is a dog. That is what he looks like. He is white. He has 4 legs in some scenes and 2 legs in others. He has a black nose. He has a red collar. He has the body shape of a real dog. By all the rules of how dogs are drawn, Brian is a dog. But Brian also speaks. He speaks in full sentences. He uses big words. He drinks martinis. He drives cars. He dates women. He writes books. He runs for office. He pays taxes. He owns things. He is, in nearly every way that matters in the show, treated as a person. Brian was there from the start. He was in the pilot. He sat next to Peter on the couch. He drank a beer. He had a slow, easy way of speaking that set him apart from the rest of the family. Across the seasons, Brian became the family member who often spoke for the show itself. He was the one who pushed back against Peter. He was the one who tried to lift the family up. He was the one who, more than anyone else, seemed to know that something about the world they were all living in was a little broken. He also became the closest friend of Stewie. The two of them have, over the years, taken up more screen time together than any other pair on the show. They have gone on time travel adventures. They have gone on long road trips. They have lived inside each other's lives in a way that no other two characters in the show have. Their friendship is the quiet center of much of the second half of the show. Take Brian out of that center, and the show changes shape. In late November 2013, that is exactly what the show did. The episode is called Life of Brian. It aired on November 24th, 2013, in the 12th season. The story starts in a normal way. Brian and Stewie have an adventure. They come home. Brian goes outside to play with a hockey ball on the street with Stewie. A car comes down the road. The driver does not see them in time. Brian is hit. Brian is hurt very badly. He is taken to the vet. The family stands around him. He says a few last words. He dies. The death itself is shown in a slow, quiet way. The show does not play it for laughs. The family cries. Stewie cries hardest of all. Brian's body is buried in the family's yard. A small ceremony is held. The episode ends with the family sitting together, trying to make sense of what has just happened. For fans, the moment hit hard. People who had grown up with the show were not ready for it. Brian had been there since the very first episode. He had been in nearly every plot. Killing him off felt to many viewers like something the show would never do. Fans wrote online. They started a petition to bring him back. The petition collected hundreds of thousands of names within a few days. News stories were written about the death. Talk shows mentioned it. The show had pulled off something very rare. It had made the world stop and pay attention. The next episode aired 1 week later. It was called Into Fat Air. In that episode, the family was already moving on. They had a new dog. The new dog was named Vinny. Vinny was a brown and white Italian-American dog who spoke with a thick New York accent. He was friendly, he was easy to like, he cooked meals, he fit in with the family. He spent time with Stewie. Stewie did not like him at first, but slowly, across 2 episodes, started to warm up to him. The show treated this as the new shape of the family. Brian was gone, Vinny was the new dog. Some fans started to believe that Brian was really gone for good. The show seemed to be moving on. Vinny had been given a real role. He was getting full scenes. He was getting jokes. He was being voiced by a well-known guest actor named Tony Sirico, who was famous for his work in a show called The Sopranos. The choice of casting alone suggested that Vinny was meant to be a real part of the family. Why would the show go to the trouble of bringing in a top guest actor for a small role that would be undone right away? But the show did undo it. And it did so in a way that almost felt designed to shake the viewer. 2 episodes after the death, in an episode called Christmas Guy,
which aired on December 15th, 2013, Brian came back. The story used time travel to bring him back. In the episode, Stewie has lost his time machine and is sad about not being able to go back and save Brian. By chance, an earlier version of Stewie from the past shows up at a Christmas event in town. Stewie sees this. He realizes that this is his chance. He follows the past Stewie home. He uses the past Stewie's time machine. He travels back to the moment just before Brian was hit by the car. He pushes Brian out of the way. The car misses. Brian lives. Time goes back to normal. Vinny is gone. Brian is back in the family. The family acts as if nothing has changed. The whole thing happened in less than a month of real time. Brian died on November 24th, 2013. He was back on December 15th, 2013. He had been gone in real life for about 3 weeks. This is one of the cleanest examples of a Family Guy mistake of choice. The show made a clear decision. It built a story around a death. It buried the character. It introduced a new character. It set up a new shape for the family. Then, in the space of 2 episodes, it threw all of that away. The death did not stick. The new dog did not stay. The story that had been built with care was undone with a piece of time travel. The reason behind the move has been talked about by people on the show. Seth MacFarlane himself has spoken about it. He has said in interviews that the death was always meant to be undone. He has said that it was a kind of test for the fans, to see how they would react. He has said that the show wanted to remind the audience how much they cared about Brian. To stay honest, the exact words and the exact reasons have been told a few different ways across different interviews. Some say the plan to bring him back was always set in stone. Some say the team was watching the fan reaction and the choice was sealed by the size of the response. The clean truth is that the death was undone, and that those involved have made it clear it was meant to be undone. This is where the mistake lives. Not in the death itself. Not in the return itself. The mistake lives in the way the show treated the whole event after. Once Brian was back, the show did not really hold on to what had just happened. The death was not used as a way to deepen Stewie's character. The death was not used to change Brian himself. The death was not used to shift how the family treated each other. After a small mention here and there, the death was almost dropped. Brian acted the same, Stewie acted the same, the family acted the same. The whole event slid into the background, almost as if it had never been part of the story at all. This is a strange move for a piece of television that had drawn so much attention. A show that had pulled real tears from real fans had been given a chance to do something rare. It could have used the death to build new ground for its characters. Instead, it used the death as a one-time event and then moved on. The pile of mistakes that the show carries grew by one more. There is also the small matter of how Vinny was treated after Brian came back. Once time was reset, Vinny had never been part of the family at all. He had been adopted by the family in a story that, in the new timeline, never took place. He was sent away. The work that had been done to set him up was wasted. The audience that had started to like him was left without him. The guest casting and the small touches that had been added to him all went into a story that the show no longer claimed as real. There is one more piece worth flagging. Some fans have noted that, in episodes after the death, there are tiny lines of dialogue that hint at the time when Brian was gone. Brian himself, on a few small moments, says something that may suggest he knows what happened. Stewie, on a few small moments, says something that may suggest the same. These hints are very small. They are not built into clear stories. They are quiet beats that might or might not have been written on purpose. To stay honest, they should be marked as soft hints, not firm proof of anything. The show has not, in any clear way, said that the death has changed who Brian is. The whole story sits today as one of the strangest moves in Family Guy's history. The show, for one short stretch of time, made the world believe that it was willing to lose one of its main characters for good. It built a story that respected the loss.
It brought in a new character to take the spot. And then, almost as fast, it took it all back. Brian's death and return is a clear example of the bigger pattern that runs through Family Guy. The show plays with its own rules and then walks away from the play. It tells the audience that something is real. It builds the story to make the audience feel the weight. Then it changes its mind. The story goes away. The world reset. For many fans, the lesson is that nothing in Family Guy is fully safe. A character can die and come back. A job can be set up and then dropped. A friend can be brought into the family and then sent away. A simple promise that the show seems to make in one episode can be broken in the next. The world is soft. The rules are soft. The lines that should hold the show together can be moved at any time. That softness has another side. It also means the world inside the show stays open to anything. A character we love is never truly gone. A story that has been closed can be reopened. A line in the sand can be wiped away. The show keeps that door open at all times. Whether that is a strength or a weakness depends on the viewer. Brian still lives in the show today. He still drinks, he still drives, he still writes. He still talks back to Peter. He still sits next to Stewie on the couch and tells him to slow down. He is, on the surface, the same Brian he was before he was hit by the car in 2013. The death is not part of his everyday life. The show has, for the most part, let it fade. But for any fan who watched it happen, the memory of those few weeks does not fully fade. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Brian's death and return showed how easily Family Guy can change its own past, undoing months of build-up with a single time travel trick. But the world the Griffins live in changes in quieter ways too, in places most viewers never stop to look at. The streets, the houses, the schools, and the neighborhoods of Quahog do not stay where they should. The next part of the story takes us out of the Griffin home and into the town itself, where the map of Quahog has been quietly shifting under everyone's feet for over 20 years. Section 7. The town of Quahog and its shifting map. Family Guy is set in a town called Quahog. The town is in Rhode Island. It is a small to medium-sized place with houses, schools, shops, parks, beaches, and a downtown area. Most of the action of the show happens inside the town. The Griffin family lives in a house on a street called Spooner Street. They go to local restaurants, they go to a local school, they go to a local mall, they go to local parks. The town is the world of the show. A town like this should have a map. In real shows that are set in real places like Bob's Burgers in its small seaside town or The Simpsons in Springfield, the map of the town does not need to be exact, but it should at least stay steady from week to week. The schools should be in roughly the same place. The houses on the main street should have roughly the same neighbors. The shops should not move around without a reason. In Family Guy, the map of Quahog is not steady at all. It moves, it shifts, it changes shape. Things that should be in one place are in another place. Streets do not match. Schools change, neighbors change. The shape of the town has shifted across the run of the show in ways that, when laid out side by side, do not fit together. The Griffin house itself is the first piece of this puzzle. The house is on Spooner Street. The number of the house is 31. That part has stayed the same. But the house has changed in the small things. The number of windows on the front has shifted across episodes. The shape of the front porch has shifted. The driveway has been wider in some episodes and narrower in others. The fence around the yard has been there in some episodes and missing in others. The backyard has been small in some episodes and large enough to play full games of sport in others. These are small drawing changes. They are normal in animation. A drawing team works on each episode. Different teams may not match each other from week to week, so a few changes here and there are not, on their own, a real mistake. But the changes pile up. Over hundreds of episodes, the house has had so many shapes that you cannot really say what the house looks like. Even the inside of the house has shifted. The kitchen has changed. The living room has changed. The number of bedrooms upstairs has changed. The placement of the stairs has changed. The way the front door opens into the living room has changed. None of these are major. All of them are real. The neighbors of the Griffin family are the more famous part of this. There is Quagmire next door. There is Joe next door. There is Cleveland, who lives nearby and later moves away. The arrangement of these houses has been shown many times. In some episodes, Quagmire's house is to one side of the Griffin house. In other episodes, it is on the other side. In some episodes, Joe's house is right next door. In other episodes, Joe's house is across the street. The houses themselves change shape and color from time to time. The placement of the neighborhood does not hold a single steady form. The town beyond the Griffin Street is even more loose. Quahog has a downtown. The downtown has been drawn in many ways. Some episodes show a small main street with a few shops. Other episodes show a larger area with many tall buildings. Some episodes show the downtown right next to the water. Other episodes show it inland, with the water being a separate part of the town. The shape of the downtown is not the same from year to year. The school that Meg and Chris go to is called James Woods Regional High School. The name comes from a real-life actor named James Woods, who has played a part in the show in some past episodes. The school building itself has been shown in many ways. In some episodes, it is one floor. In other episodes, it is 2 or 3 floors. In some episodes, it is a small building with one set of doors. In other episodes, it is a large place with many wings. The number of students changes too. The classes change, the teachers change. Some teachers come and go without a clear reason. Others stay for many seasons and then disappear. The school is one of the least steady places in the whole show. There is also a school for younger children that Stewie has gone to in some episodes. This school is shown as a small preschool with a small set of kids. The teacher has changed across episodes. The set of children in the class has changed. In some episodes, Stewie is the only baby-like child in the room. In others, there are more children who look about his size. The school is not always called by the same name from one episode to the next. There is also a hospital. Quahog has a local hospital where the family goes when someone is hurt. The hospital has been shown in many ways. In some episodes, the doctor is a man who is barely able to do his job. In other episodes, the doctor is a more normal kind of doctor. The hospital building itself has been drawn in many shapes and sizes. The waiting room has shifted. The rooms inside have shifted. The way the rooms are laid out has shifted. There is a bar called the Drunken Clam. This is the bar where Peter, Quagmire, Joe, and other friends spend much of their time. The bar has stayed in the show as a steady setting, but the inside of the bar has changed. The pool table has been in different places. The bar itself has been longer in some episodes and shorter in others. The number of stools has changed. The bathroom door has been on different walls. The bartender has stayed mostly the same, but the look around him has shifted often. There are also smaller shops and locations that come and go. A toy store, a music store, a movie theater, a bowling alley, a small park where children play, a larger park where people walk dogs, a boardwalk near the water, a mall. These places appear in some episodes and not others. Sometimes a place that was shown as a busy spot in one season is never shown again. Sometimes a place that was destroyed in one episode comes back in a later one with no word about how. The destruction of buildings is another part of the shifting town. Family Guy has destroyed parts of Quahog more times than most fans can count. There have been fires, there have been floods, there have been bombs, there have been giant chickens, alien attacks, and stray rockets. Each of these events has caused real damage to the town inside the story. After the event, the town goes back to looking like it always has. The buildings come back, the streets come back, the damage is gone. The show treats each one as a one-time event with no lasting cost. This is part of the same softness that Brian's death showed. The show makes things happen, then the show takes them back. The viewer sees the change in the moment, then the world goes back to the way it was. The town is part of this same soft world. It can be hurt and brought back. It can be drawn one way and then drawn another. Nothing in it is fully fixed. Some fans have tried to make a steady map of Quahog. They have looked at every episode where the town is shown. They have tried to put the school, the bar, the church, the houses, the hospital, the downtown, and the water in clear places. The result is a map that does not really hold. The same place is in different spots in different episodes. The same building is in different shapes. The same street is in different layouts. The church is one of the smaller examples. The Griffin family goes to a local church in some episodes. The priest there has changed across episodes. The size of the church has changed. The placement of the church inside the town has changed. The same is true for other places of worship that have shown up here and there. Quahog also has a nearby town that is sometimes mentioned. There are stories that take place in nearby places. Some of these are smaller villages. Some are bigger cities. The placement of these other places in relation to Quahog has not been steady. The drive between them has been short in one episode and long in another. The roads have changed. The path has changed. There is one more layer to the shifting town. The flag of the town. The seal of the town. The motto of the town. These are small details that have shown up in a small number of episodes. They have not always been the same. The seal has been drawn in different ways. The motto has been said in different forms. To be honest, these very small details have not been pinned down in any clear way across the show, and any fan who tries to build a steady picture of them will find pieces that do not fit together. The result is a town that feels real in spirit, but cannot be drawn on a clean map. Quahog is alive in the show. It is full of people. It is full of stories. It has its own feel. But its shape moves. Its streets move. Its buildings move. The town is a kind of soft place that takes the form the writers need that week. For most viewers, this is not a problem. Each episode shows what it shows, and the next episode shows what it shows. The viewer is not asked to remember where every shop sits. But for any viewer who looks closely, the shifts add up. The town is one of the largest places in the show where mistakes pile on top of mistakes. This kind of fact, like so many other parts of Family Guy, has become part of the background of the show. Fans now expect it. They know the school may look different next time. They know the bar may have a new wall. They know Quagmire's house may be on a different side of the street. They watch and let the changes pass. The world is loose, and the show has been this way for so long that loose is what it has become known for. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The town has shifted under the feet of the Griffins for years, with houses moving, schools changing shape, and entire buildings coming back from the dead with no story to explain it. But the shifting is not only in the streets and the buildings, it is also in the people. Some of the people who walk through Quahog have themselves come back after they were buried, sometimes more than once, in small ways that the show has never bothered to explain. The next part of this story looks at the characters who have died, come back, and died again, and what their soft deaths say about the way Family Guy treats its own world. Section 8. The characters who died more than once. Death is supposed to be the one thing that does not move. In any story, in any show, in any film, when a character dies, that should be the end of their part. They are gone. They cannot come back. The story has lost them. The other characters live with that loss. The world is smaller without them. This is one of the oldest rules of telling stories. Death is final. Family Guy does not always follow this rule. The show has killed many of its own people. Some of these deaths have stuck. The character is gone. They are not seen again. They are mentioned, sometimes, in flashbacks or in passing lines, but they do not come back. Other deaths have not stuck. The character is gone, and then they are not gone. They show up in a later episode alive again, with no clear word on how. The show simply puts them back into the world. Sometimes the show says nothing about it at all. Sometimes the show makes a small joke about it and moves on. Sometimes the show acts as if the death was never real to begin with. This is one of the longest running mistakes in Family Guy. Death is treated as a soft thing. A character can die in one episode and walk into the next as if nothing happened. The death has no real cost. The world does not change. The other characters do not seem to remember. The pile of dead and undead people in Quahog has grown across the years. The clearest example of this is a man named Mr. Weed. He was the boss at the happy-go-lucky toy factory, where Peter worked in the early seasons. He was a soft, kind man with a gentle voice. He had been in many of the early episodes of the show. In a Season 4 episode called Peter's Got Woods, Mr. Weed comes to dinner at the Griffin house. He chokes on a piece of food at the dinner table. He falls forward. He does not get up. The family stands around him. The show treats this as a real death. He is buried. He is gone. Then, he is not gone. In later episodes, the toy factory is shown again. There are scenes set inside the factory. In some of these later scenes, Mr. Weed is shown alive, even though he had been buried in Season 4. The show does not explain how he came back. The show does not say anything about it. He is simply there in some moments, and not there in others. To stay honest, his appearances after his death are mostly in cutaways and short side moments, rather than full main story scenes. But the fact remains that the show has shown him alive after the show told us he was dead. There is also Diane Simmons. She was one of the newsreaders on the Channel 5 News in Quahog. She was on screen many times across the early seasons. She read the news with her partner, Tom Tucker. She was part of the regular faces of the town. Then in a Season 9 episode called And Then There Were Fewer, Diane Simmons is killed. She is shot at the end of the episode. The death is clear. The show does not soften it. She is gone. After that, Diane Simmons stays mostly gone from the main news desk. The desk later gets a new partner for Tom. Joyce Kinney comes in. She becomes the new face of the news. This is one of the cases where the death has, in many ways, stuck. But the show has used Diane in flashbacks and short cutaways since then. She has been seen in scenes that are set in the past or in dreamlike moments. So while her death is held in the main timeline, her face still shows up here and there. To be honest, this is a softer kind of return than Mr. Weed had, but it still shows that even a death that is held has not really kept the character fully out of the show. There is also Muriel Goldman. She was the wife of Mort Goldman, who runs a small pharmacy in town. Mort is one of the longer-running side characters in the show. His wife Muriel was around in the background for many seasons. In the same Season 9 episode where Diane Simmons was killed, Muriel Goldman is also killed. She is found dead inside a house during the same story. The show plays both deaths together as part of the same plot. Muriel does not come back to life in the main story, but like Diane, she has been seen in cutaways, in flashbacks, and in small side moments since then. Mort has continued to talk about her in different ways across the years. The death is real, but the body of work the show keeps building around her does not feel like a clean ending. There is also Loretta Brown. She was the wife of Cleveland Brown for many seasons. She was a regular face in the world of the show. When Cleveland was given his own show, called The Cleveland Show, he and Loretta moved to a new town. Their marriage ended in the early part of that show. Then, in a story on The Cleveland Show, Loretta was killed. She fell from a great height and died. After The Cleveland Show was canceled and Cleveland came back to Family Guy, the show treated Loretta as gone. But Loretta has shown up in some short moments since then in cutaways and flashbacks. The death has, in the main story, mostly held, but the show keeps using her face when it wants to. These three women all died in serious moments. Their deaths were not played for cheap jokes. They were real beats in real episodes. But the show has not fully let any of them go. Each of them has been seen in one way or another after their death. The show keeps the door cracked open, even when it tells the audience the door is closed. There are also smaller characters who have died and come back in less clear ways. Side characters who get killed in a story and then walk back into the show with no words said about them. Local people who are part of crowds, who are part of running jokes, who are part of the background, who get hurt or killed in one episode and are part of the background again the next week. The show does not always treat these as full mistakes. They are too small to count in the eyes of the writers. But for any viewer who keeps a careful list, these small returns are real. There is one more death that is worth talking about, even though it sits in a strange place. Ernie the Giant Chicken is one of the most famous side characters in Family Guy. He is a giant chicken who Peter has fought many times across the years. The fights are long and full of damage. Each fight has ended with Ernie looking dead. He has been hit by cars, he has fallen from buildings, he has been thrown into water, he has been blown up. By the rules of the real world, he should have died many times. He has not died. He keeps coming back. Every fight is treated as a kind of fresh start. He shows up again. He looks fine, he fights Peter again. The damage that should have killed him is gone. Some fans have come to see him as a kind of cartoon character who simply cannot die, in the way that older cartoon animals could not die. Whether the show meant for him to be that way from the start is not fully clear. To be honest, the show has not given a firm rule for whether Ernie can or cannot die. What is clear is that the show has shown him in states that should have killed him many times over, and each time he comes back as if nothing happened. The bigger pattern under all these deaths is the same pattern that runs through the rest of the show. Family Guy does not lock its own facts in place. A death is real in the moment of the episode. After the episode is over, the death may or may not stay. The show keeps the option to bring the person back. The show keeps the option to use the dead character in flashbacks and cutaways and small jokes. The death is not erased, but it is also not fully respected. Some viewers find this to be a problem. A death should mean something. If a character is killed, the world of the show should feel that loss in the weeks and months that follow. The other characters should change. The setting should change. There should be empty seats and empty chairs. Family Guy mostly does not do this. The deaths come, the deaths are quiet, and the world goes back to how it was. The empty seat is filled. The empty chair is filled, sometimes by the same character coming back, sometimes by a new face who steps into the same role. There is also the part where the show seems to know what it is doing and does not care. Family Guy has, in some episodes, made small jokes about its own treatment of death. Peter has, at times, said things that suggest the world they live in does not follow the same rules as the real world. Other characters have, at times, made small jokes about how easily someone can come back from being gone. These are not full apologies. They are not full explanations. They are small winks. They tell the audience that the writers know what is happening. The writers just choose to keep doing it. For viewers who watch many seasons of the show in order, the soft death pattern becomes one of the loudest mistakes in the show. People come and go. People come back. The show holds its world open at every door. Anyone can be brought back. Anyone can be sent away. Anyone can be there one week and gone the next. The faces of the show are tools for the story, not fixed points in a real world. This makes the world of Family Guy feel different from the world of other long-running cartoons. The Simpsons, for all its years on the air, mostly keeps its dead, dead. King of the Hill kept its dead, dead. Bob's Burgers has not really killed many of its main people. Family Guy has killed many, and Family Guy has brought back many. The mix of real death and undone death makes its world feel softer than other shows of its kind. Some fans see this as part of the fun. The show is wild. The show is loose. The show plays with its own rules. The deaths and undeaths are part of the larger style. Other fans see this as a real flaw. The deaths feel cheap because they may not last. The losses do not carry weight. The world does not feel real because the rules are not real. Both views have truth to them. Family Guy is a show that has chosen to keep its hands free. It does not want to be tied down by what it has already shown. It wants to be free to use any character, any place, any moment, any plot, at any time. The cost of that freedom is the steady pile of small mistakes that it leaves behind. Mr. Weed, Diane Simmons, Muriel Goldman, Loretta Brown, Ernie the Giant Chicken, and many smaller faces are part of that pile. They are characters whose place inside the show is not fully clear. They are alive in some episodes and dead in others. They have walked out of their own funerals more than once. They have lived past their own bodies. The show keeps using them when it needs them and forgets them when it does not. The world of Family Guy is in this way full of ghosts who walk in plain sight. They sit at the desk on the news. They run the toy factory. They stand behind the counter at the small shop. They fight Peter in a long alley. The show does not always tell you which ones are alive and which ones are dead. The show may not even know. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The shifting fate of these characters shows just how loose Family Guy is with its own world. People die, come back, are forgotten, and then walk into a scene as if nothing has happened. But not every mistake in the show is about big things like death or age or jobs. Some of the smallest mistakes hide in the corners of the picture itself, in the lines, in the colors, in the small details that flash by in a single shot. The next part of this story looks at the small drawing slips that live inside the show, the kind that most viewers never catch, but that are always quietly there. Section 9. The animation mistakes hidden in the frames. Family Guy is a hand-drawn cartoon. That is how it began, and that is how it has stayed. Across more than 20 years on the air, the show has used hand-drawn animation, with help from computers in the later years to clean up the lines and to color the frames. Each scene is built up from many small drawings. Each drawing is then laid over a background. Each frame is checked, colored, and then put together with the next frame. When played at the right speed, the frames come together to make the moving image that the viewer sees on screen. Animation is hard work. It is also full of small chances for mistakes. Every shot is a chance for a mistake. Every move is a chance for a mistake. Every color choice is a chance for a mistake. With hundreds of episodes, each one with hundreds of shots, the number of small chances for things to go wrong is enormous. Even a careful team will miss things. Even a strong team will let some slips through. This is true of every animated show in television history. Family Guy is no different. The show has hundreds of small animation mistakes hidden across its run. Some are tiny, some are larger. Most are never caught by viewers on a normal watch. They live in the corners of the frame, in single shots that pass in less than a second. They become visible only when the frame is paused, or when the scene is watched many times in a row, or when a sharp eye catches a slip that does not match. The simplest kind of mistake is a color slip. A character is wearing one color in one shot and a different color in the next. This happens a lot in Family Guy. Peter's pants change shade between scenes. Lois's hair has been drawn in slightly different shades of red across many episodes. Stewie's shirt has shifted in tone. Brian's collar has been a deeper red in some scenes and a lighter red in others. Chris's shirt has changed between two close shades of green. Meg's hat has in some scenes been a slightly different pink. These changes are small. Some of them are within the normal range of how a cartoon team handles colors over time. But others are clear shifts that do not match across single scenes. To stay honest, not every fan can spot every color slip. And some color changes happen because of the way television sets show colors. But the slips inside single scenes, where the same character changes shade between cuts, are real and have been noted by many fans. Then there are the drawing slips. A character is shown holding something in one shot, and the thing is gone in the next shot. Peter has, in many scenes, been shown holding a beer in one frame and not in the next, even though he has not had time to put it down. Stewie has, in many scenes, been shown holding a toy in one frame and not in the next. Brian has, in many scenes, been shown holding a glass in one frame and not in the next. The hands of characters often hold and lose small props between cuts. There are also placement slips. A character is sitting in one place in one shot and then in a different place in the next, even though they have not moved. The Griffin family at the dinner table is a classic spot for this. The way the family is arranged around the table has changed many times across the show. Sometimes Peter is at the head of the table, sometimes Lois is, sometimes Brian is sitting next to Stewie, sometimes he is across from him, Sometimes Meg is near the wall. Sometimes she is near the open side. The seating chart has not been steady. Single scenes have shown small changes in seat placement between cuts. The shape of the table itself has changed. Sometimes it is round, sometimes it is square, sometimes it is a long rectangle. The room around the table has changed too. The wall behind the family has had different colors. The window placement has shifted. The plants in the room have moved. The carpet has been there in some episodes and not in others. The kitchen is another place where the drawing has slipped many times. The shape of the counter has shifted. The placement of the stove has shifted. The placement of the fridge has shifted. The cabinets have changed shape. The layout of the room has not been the same from year to year. To stay honest, kitchens in cartoons often shift slightly because each episode is built by different teams, but in Family Guy, the changes are big enough that fans have noticed and laid out side-by-side comparisons online. There are also slips with side characters. Quagmire has been drawn with a slightly different chin shape in different episodes. Joe has been drawn with slightly different size wheelchairs. Cleveland has been drawn with slightly different mouth shapes in different episodes. Herbert, the strange older man who lives nearby, has been drawn with slightly different walker styles. Mort Goldman has had hair that is darker in some scenes and lighter in others. To be honest, these are very small changes. Most of them are within the normal range of how a cartoon team handles a character across many years. But added together, they show that the look of even the regular characters in the show is not fully fixed. The town outside the home is another place for these slips. The Drunken Clam, the bar where Peter and his friends go, has had small shifts in its inside layout. The pool table has been in different parts of the room. The number of stools at the bar has changed. The bathroom door has been on different walls. The bartender has stayed the same person, but the space around him has shifted. There are also slips with the cars. The Griffin family has a station wagon that they use as their main car. The model and shape of the car has shifted across episodes. Some episodes show one shape, others show a slightly different shape. The color has been mostly steady, but small changes have happened. Other family cars and sidecars have shifted in shape and color too. There are also slips in the lip movement. Sometimes a character is shown speaking, but their lips do not match the words. Sometimes a character is shown listening, but their mouth still moves, as if leftover frames from a longer take were left in by mistake. Sometimes a character is shown saying a long line, but the lip movement is much shorter than the sound of the line. These are small slips in the work of putting picture and sound together. There are also slips in the background characters. In a single scene, a background person may walk one way in one shot and a different way in the next. A small group of background people may be made up of different faces in two shots that are meant to be the same moment. The crowd at a Patriots game, the crowd at a town meeting, the crowd at a school event, all have small changes between cuts. To be honest, this kind of slip is normal in animation. Most shows have it, but Family Guy has hundreds of crowd scenes, and the number of small changes inside crowds across the show is large. There are also slips in the way characters age in flashbacks. Peter and Lois are shown as young people in many flashback stories. The way they look as young people has not been steady. In some flashbacks, young Peter has one hairstyle. In others, he has another. In some, his face is rounder. In others, it is thinner. The same is true of Lois. Their wedding has been shown in more than one episode, and the way it looks has not been the same each time. The setting has changed. The clothes have changed. The friends and family in the crowd have changed. To stay honest, some of these changes can be put down to flashbacks being shown from different points of view. But the changes are still there. The same is true of the children in flashbacks. Meg as a young girl, Chris as a young boy, and Stewie as a younger baby have all been shown in different ways in different flashbacks. The drawing of them has not been the same across all the times they have been shown. There are also slips in the writing on signs and other small details inside the frame. The writing on a license plate has changed across episodes. The writing on a shop sign has changed. The writing on a piece of paper that a character is holding has, in some scenes, been clear and readable, and in others been a kind of placeholder that is not quite real text. To be honest, this kind of slip is so small that it is mostly only seen by fans who pause the frame and look closely, but it is still part of the pile. For most viewers, none of these small slips matter. The show plays at full speed. The eye catches the big things, not the small ones. A color shift, a missing prop, a moved chair, a different chin line do not slow down the watching. The viewer takes in the joke and moves on. The show works. But for fans who watch closely, the small slips are part of the texture of the show. They are reminders that the show is built by hand. They are reminders that the show is made by many people. They are reminders that no animated show is fully clean. In Family Guy, the slips are larger than in some shows because the show has so many shots, so many characters, so many places, and so many years. The number of chances for small slips is huge. The number of small slips that have happened is large. There is no fixing this. The show is what it is. The episodes are made. They are out in the world. The slips are part of the record. Some fans laugh at them. Some fans love finding them. Some fans use them as small games while watching the show. The slips are part of the soft world that the show has always lived in. Family Guy has built its name on jokes that come fast, on cutaways that go in many directions, on stories that are full of strange twists. Under all of that, the picture itself has been a moving target. The show has been drawn by many hands across many years. The lines have shifted, the colors have shifted, the shapes have shifted. The picture, like the world inside it, has never been fully fixed. The mistakes hidden in the frames are not the kind of mistakes that hurt the show. They are the kind of mistakes that mark the show as a thing made by people. They show, in a quiet way, the human side of the work. The team has worked hard. The team has done a lot. The team has missed some things. That is true of every animated show, and it is true of Family Guy, too. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The small slips in the picture are only one part of the larger pattern. Each color shift, each missing prop, each moved chair tells the same story as the bigger mistakes do. The show is loose, the rules are soft, and the world inside the show changes shape from week to week. But the deepest mistakes in Family Guy do not live in the drawings. They live in the way the show tells its stories. The next and final part of this video looks at the cutaways, the flashbacks, and the long memory of the show, and the way the show forgets its own past in the very moments when it should be holding it most tightly. Section 10. The Cutaways and the Memory Problem. Family Guy is, more than any other show on television, built around the cutaway. The cutaway is the joke that breaks the story. A character will say a line, the line will remind them of something, or sound a bit like something, or have a small word that connects to something else. The screen then jumps away from the main story. It shows a short scene that is not part of the main plot. The short scene plays out as its own small joke. Then the screen jumps back to where the story was. The main story goes on as if the side trip never happened. This style of joke is not new. The Simpsons used short cutaway moments years before Family Guy. Older sketch shows used the same trick going back to the early days of television. But Family Guy made the cutaway the heart of how it tells its stories. A normal Family Guy episode has many cutaways. Some episodes have so many that the main story barely holds together. The cutaways take up real time. They take the place of long talks between characters. They take the place of long story turns. The show often moves forward by jumping from cutaway to cutaway, rather than by following one steady plot. This is the strength of the show. The cutaway gives the writers a free space. They can show anything. They can travel through time, they can travel to other planets, they can show the family as old people, as babies, as cartoon versions of other shows, as live-action people, as historical figures. They can show short jokes that belong to one moment and never need to fit anywhere else. The cutaway is a tool that gives the show no limits. But
The cutaway is also the spot where one of the deepest mistakes in the show lives. The cutaway is, in a way, where the memory problem of Family Guy is born. To see this, it helps to look at how a cutaway works in a normal Family Guy episode. Peter says something. The screen jumps. We see Peter in a small, short scene. The scene may show him as a child.
It may show him at a job he has never had on the show before. It may show him with people we have never seen before. It may show him doing something that is the opposite of what the show has set up about him. The cutaway plays for a few seconds. The joke lands. The show goes back to the main story. Now think about what just happened. The show showed us something about Peter. It told us, in pictures, that something has happened in Peter's life. Maybe he was a sailor at one time. Maybe he was a teacher. Maybe he had a friend we have never heard of. Maybe he met a famous person. The cutaway showed it as if it were real. The viewer sees it on screen. The picture is the same kind of picture as the rest of the show. Then the cutaway is over. The show does not say if it was real. The show does not say if it was made up. The show does not flag it. The show simply moves on. The next week, that piece of Peter's life may show up again, or it may never be mentioned again. Or it may be replaced with a new piece of his life that does not match the old one.
This is the heart of the memory problem. The show has been adding small pieces to the lives of its main characters across hundreds of episodes. Each cutaway has added something. Each one has shown us a small new piece of who they are or where they came from. Over time, those pieces have piled up. The pieces do not match each other. The pieces would not, in any real life, fit together inside one person. They cannot all be true. Take Peter. Across the show, cutaways have shown that Peter has been many things. He has been a child star, he has been a friend of famous people, he has worked many jobs, he has been to many places. He has lived many lives. If you put together every cutaway about Peter and tried to write his life story, the story would not work. He would have done more in his life than is humanly possible. He would have lived in more places than one person could.
He would have known more people than one person could. The show does not say which cutaways are real and which are not. The show does not flag any of them. The show treats each cutaway as a small piece of joke and moves on. But the cutaways are made of pictures, and the pictures look just like the rest of the show. So the brain of the viewer takes them in as part of the world. The viewer sees them and remembers them. The viewer adds them to the picture of who Peter is. The same is true of every other main character. Lois has had cutaways that show her growing up rich, growing up wild, growing up in many different places, dating many different people. Brian has had cutaways that show him with many old jobs, many old loves, many old lives. Stewie has had cutaways that show him as a future adult, as an old man, as a baby, in many strange places. Chris and Meg have had cutaways too, though fewer than the others. The full life of each character is split across many cutaways that, when laid side by side, do not fit. A clear example of this lives in the way the show has handled the past of Peter himself. In a Season 4 episode called Peter's Got Woods, Peter goes back to his old high school. The school is shown with one set of details. In other episodes, Peter has spoken about his school days in different ways, with different friends and different stories that do not fully match the picture set up in that episode. The show keeps adding to his school years without lining them up with each other. His parents are another piece of this. For most of the show, Peter is the son of Francis Griffin, a strict Irish Catholic father, and Thelma Griffin, his mother. Then, in a Season 4 episode called The Father, the Son, and the Holy Fawns, the show introduces a man named Mickey McFinnigan, who is said to be Peter's true biological father. From that point on, Peter has two fathers in the show's past. Both have shown up in later episodes. The show has used both as needed. Lois has the same kind of pile. Her family has been shown with different members at different times, and her parents, Carter and Babs Pewterschmidt, have had small details about their own past told in more than one way. To stay honest, the exact lines about her family's full history are not fully clean in public sources. What is clear is that the show has, at times, told her past in ways that do not match earlier tellings. This is what the show calls memory, but it is not real memory. It is a pile of small jokes that have been treated as memory because there is nothing else to treat them as. The show does not have a clean past. It has a pile of cutaways. There is also the problem of flashbacks. A flashback is different from a cutaway. A cutaway is a short side joke. A flashback is a real piece of a story that is set in the past. The show has used flashbacks many times across the years. Peter and Lois meeting for the first time has been shown in flashback in more than one episode. Peter losing his real father has been shown in flashback. Lois growing up in her family's mansion has been shown in flashback. Brian being a young dog has been shown in flashback. Stewie being born has been shown in flashback. The flashback should be more steady than the cutaways. They are full stories with real beats. They are meant to fill in the past of the family. But they too have shifted across the years. The way Peter and Lois met has been shown in more than one way. The story of how Peter found out about his real father has been told in different ways. The story of Brian's early life has been told in different ways.
The story of Stewie's birth has been told in different ways. This is one of the clearest places where the memory problem can be seen. A flashback is a piece of past. A piece of past should not change. If the show told us in one season that Peter and Lois met in one way, then a later season should not tell us they met in a different way. But Family Guy has, in fact, told the same parts of the family's past in more than one way across the years. The show seems to know this. There are small jokes inside the show that point to it. Peter has, at times, said things that suggest he himself does not know his own past. Lois has, at times, said things that suggest the same. Brian has, at times, made small jokes about how the show keeps changing what it has already said. These are small winks. They tell the viewer that the writers know there is a problem and have chosen not to fix it. There is one more part of this that is worth saying. The cutaway changed what Family Guy is. In the early seasons, the cutaways were used here and there. The main stories carried more of the weight. The family talked more. The story moved more by talk and action between people. As the show moved into its longer life, the cutaways grew. They took up more of each episode. The main stories got shorter. The talk between family members became thinner. The cutaways did more of the work. This shift had a cost. The more cutaways the show used, the more pieces of past it added. The more pieces of past it added, the bigger the pile of facts that did not fit. The bigger the pile, the more the show forgot. By the time the show was deep into its later seasons, the show had so many cutaways behind it that it could not have kept track even if it had wanted to. There was simply too much. No team of writers could hold all of it in mind at once. The show began to forget what it had said. It would have a character do something in one episode that did not match what they had done in another. It would tell a piece of past that did not fit with a piece it had told before. It would bring back a side character with a different story than the one they had been given the first time. The forgetting was not a one-time thing. It became the normal way the show worked. For longtime fans, this is one of the most quiet but most painful parts of the show. The world they have been watching is not really a world. It is a long string of moments that do not fully connect. The same characters are not really the same characters across the years. The same family is not really the same family across the years. The faces are the same, the voices are the same, the names are the same, but the lives behind the faces and voices and names have changed many times. The show has built a kind of false memory around its own people. The viewer is asked to believe in that memory, even when the memory does not hold. For new fans, this is not a problem. They watch one episode, they watch another. The cutaways play, the jokes land, they move on. The show works. They do not need the show to have a steady past. They are not looking for one. The show is fast, the show is loud, the show is full of small jokes. That is what they came for. The forgotten past is not part of what they are watching. For the show itself, the memory problem is part of its way of being. Family Guy has, across more than 2 decades, built a world that does not need to remember itself.
The show is not built like a long novel. It is built more like a long string of short jokes laid end to end. The whole only matters as much as the next joke. The past only matters as much as the joke needs it to. The future only matters as much as the joke needs it to. Everything is in service of the laugh in front of the viewer right now. This is, in the end, the deepest mistake in Family Guy. It is not the moving age of Meg. It is not the changing voice of the early seasons. It is not the shifting jobs of Peter.
It is not the year that never moved on Stewie. It is not the death of Brian. It is not the soft map of Quahog. It is not the dead who keep walking. It is not the small drawing slips in the frame. All of those mistakes come from the same root. The root is that the show has chosen the joke over the world. It has chosen the punchline over the past. It has chosen the cutaway over the long story. It has chosen the moment over the memory. Each of those choices on its own is small, but across hundreds of episodes, those choices have built up into the long pile of mistakes that make up the body of this video. Family Guy is not a careful show. It is not a clean show. It is not a show that holds its own world together. It is a wild, fast, loose show that has, for more than 20 years, kept its head above water by being faster than its own memory. The mistakes are part of the show. The mistakes are part of the price. The show would not be what it is without them.
The Griffins are still on Spooner Street. Peter still works somewhere. Stewie is still 1 year old. Meg is still in some grade of high school. Brian still drives a car. Quahog still sits on its soft map. The dead still walk through the frame from time to time. The cutaways still take the show in any direction the writers want. The show has not changed its way. After all these years, it has only grown more sure of the way it has always been. Whatever you think of the show, it has earned its place in the history of cartoons. It has been on the air longer than most shows ever last. It has shaped the way later cartoons tell their stories. It has given a long line of voice actors steady work. It has given fans years of laughs. It has, in its own way, been honest about the kind of show it is. It has never tried to be careful. It has never tried to keep its own world clean. It has been loose from the start, and it has stayed loose to this day. The mistakes are part of that honesty. They are not hidden. They are out in the open, in the cutaways, in the deaths, in the jobs, in the shifting town, in the slipping picture, in the unsteady memory. Anyone who watches closely can see them. Anyone who keeps watching has to make peace with them. They are the cost of the show that Family Guy chose to be. The pile of mistakes in Family Guy is large because the show is large. The cutaways have built a memory that does not fully match itself. The deaths have come and gone. The town has shifted. The faces have changed. The years have moved without moving. All of these slips, taken one by one, are small. Taken together, they tell the story of a show that has chosen the laugh over the world for more than 2 decades. If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.